Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final keynote of the day. I am delighted to be welcoming Fonz of Netflix. I'll tell you a little bit more about him. But Fonz, great to have you at GIF.
What's up, Tom? Good to see you again.
What's up? I can't pull it off. I can't pull off what's up. I'm too British. But anyway, it's great to have you here.
Hello, my friend.
The College of Arts and General Assembly's UX design boot camps. I know you give a lot back, which is great. And thank you for giving us some of your time as well. So really excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Shout out to Max when he reached out to me to participate. It felt like it was so long. And then now we're here.
Now we're here, indeed. And we're also joined by the amazing Chris Shipton, who's doing the visual scribing down here. And hello, there we go.
Yeah. So creative, man. I love
exactly that. And then also just to encourage, as we go through, guys, please do put questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to feed them in. But look, Fonz, you know, self-taught designer, entrepreneur, you've come from Brooklyn all the way to sort of San Jose and Netflix. You know, tell us, what were the kind of key milestones? What were some of those moments that took you from Brooklyn to Netflix?
So one of the major milestones was when I graduated college, my university opened up a computer lab called the Digital Aquarium. And when my friend told me about the Digital Aquarium, I laughed because I said, man, I'm a broke college senior. I don't have time to go to no aquarium. I'm not interested in no fish. And he said, no, man, it's not a real aquarium. It's a computer lab. And this was a long time ago, but they completely furnished the lab with all new multimedia equipment, cameras, Macs, PCs, anything you needed. And I literally just moved into the lab, Tom, and I taught myself everything I needed to get the business started. I was in that lab every single day for 2 years. And I was able to start with video production, but then I moved over into graphic design and then into web design. And I got so good that I was able to start getting clients together. And that's when I started the agency. And that's when everything just took off after that. So I would say that was a major point, because that's when I really started to focus on becoming a graphic designer, ultimately ending as a product designer.
Amazing how those opportunities. I mean, I think there are similar stories with some of the guys like Bill Gates and whatever. When you give people access to that, they lap it up. That, well, not everyone maybe, but there are people who are just there and they're hungry and they don't have the opportunity. So again, you know,
access is key.
Access is key. Access is key, and we talked about it with sort of Makers Labs in before earlier in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell us a bit about your role at Netflix. So what falls into your remit? Because I think it's important to say, you know, Fonz perhaps isn't the man behind Squid Game and
Stranger Things. Right. So most people understand, but don't think about it that way. There's a product side of Netflix, which is what you actually interact with it and you use. And then there's the content side. The content side is actually based out of LA and based all over the world, where I'm in San Jose, which is where our Los Gatos office is. And I focus on increasing the Netflix subscribers. So right now we're at 220 million plus, and my team's goal is to get us to 500 million to $1 billion. What does that look like when you have a company that is so popular? How do you find these new subscribers? Where are they? What kind of ideas or features or initiatives can you create to bring more people to the platform? So that's what I spend my day on, just trying to get into the minds of existing Netflix subscribers or non-Netflix subscribers and creating things that would allure them to the platform.
Amazing. And that probably leads us neatly to the kind of the topic, right, which is creativity in a world of data. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Netflix, there's a lot of quantitative data, I imagine, user data floating around. Mm-hmm. But talk to us, because sometimes there's seen to be a bit of a kind of head-to-head relationship between data and creativity. How do you, and how are you going to go from sort of 220 million users to 1 billion? How is data going to play a role in that?
Well, we use data in a ton of different ways. The one specific way that we use it is through qualitative research, where instead of us creating ideas and just putting it out to the public and just hoping it sticks, we actually go through a ton of research where we'll create some ideas, we'll do some focus groups, we'll do some qualitative research where we get in front of the users and we learn, are we on the right path or do we need to make some edits? And if we need to make some edits, we go back to not the drawing board, go back to the lab, tweak some things, present it again to some users, see how that lands. And if that lands well, then now we know the path to go. If it doesn't land well, then we know that we need to change some things. So we spend a lot of time talking to our users because we don't like to make assumptions about things. We're too big of a company with too much of a brand to roll out bad ideas. So we choose to try to hear from our customers before we make that final decision, because the worst thing we can do is roll something out, get a bunch of backlash, and then have to roll the idea back. So testing and qualitative research really prevents us from ever finding ourselves in those situations.
I love that line. Too big to make assumptions, too big to roll out bad ideas. You don't like to make assumptions. And I'm a self-avowed sort of qualitative fan. So
I love it. I mean, I've never been at a company that had this many resources to do it, but I've also never felt as in tune with the subscribers or users of a platform because we have access to so much qualitative research. So it's a win-win for everybody.
And I think what I love about the way you're talking also is there is a humility to it, which, I think it's not that you're saying, I'm not a brilliant designer, I don't know what this product's about, but you're listening, you're putting your customer, your user at the heart of what you're doing, rather than you and your ego or your team or even the business, right? It's a kind of combination. It's a conversation.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I would like to double click on that, where we have a ton of, so I'm all about user empathy and I'm all about solving my user problems. Like I had said before, when I first started my career, I was gauging my success on what did people think about the design that I finished? Did it look beautiful? Was everybody raving over it? Where I wasn't really as focused on, did I actually solve the problem of the user that I was building this for? Where now I'm less concerned about what I think it may look like visually, or this isn't what I wanted. I'm more focused on, did I solve your problem? And if I solved your problem, then I'm happy.
Amazing. No, and again, I love that iterative process. I think that's a fantastic way to work. So we've talked sort of hypothetically about it. Can you give us any examples that bring this to life? How have you kind of used data in the sort of conversion? What sort of challenges might you have tackled that bring this to life?
Sure. So there was one project that we wanted to roll out, and we had spent a couple of months internally coming up with this idea. We did some screens. We were ready to go, and we all inside thought it was a really good idea. And we did some qualitative research that was spread across New Zealand and Australia and Europe and Central America and South America. And we just got a lot of negative feedback from the participants. They didn't really understand the idea. They didn't really connect with it. And because of that, we ended up having to go back and completely, not necessarily scrapping, but we rethought the whole project in general. We learned from the good and the bad, came up with a whole new idea, went back to present it again, like switch the whole concept up, honestly, like scrap the concept. And then we built on top of it, though. So it wasn't that it was a whole new idea. It was a completely new iteration of the idea.
Yeah.
And the second time when we went back and did some more qualitative research, we had a lot more like the audience was a lot more receptive because we removed a lot of the red flags from the first version. And then we ended up actually rolling out the second idea that we came up with. So this is what I was saying of, if we had skipped that first round of quals and just released it, we would have got so much negative feedback, and it would have been way harder to try to make things better again. So by us doing that research, we had to take that on the chin and go back and rethink about the idea and come up with something better. And I'm glad we did that, because it was way more successful than if we would have launched it the first time.
Amazing. We've got a question in from Suzette. And I think actually maybe the you know, what you've been talking about in terms of qualitative and so on might address this. But talking about how do you use data to increase subscriptions of non-users if you're sort of just solving for current user pain points. But are you just talking to current users, or are you talking?
No.
Yeah.
So actually, my team focuses on non-members. So Suzette, that's a great question. My team actually focuses on non-members, but we also have to focus on members, because when you think of our life cycle, you sign up for, you're not a Netflix member, you sign up for Netflix, you enjoy the platform, you leave for whatever reason, but then you decide to come back. So even though you come back, we don't look at you as a non-member anymore. We look at you as a former member. So ways that we use that data is we want to get you through the pipeline as fast as possible through the sign-up experience. So we're always trying to get into the mind of the users and look for any hiccups that could potentially slow your sign-up down. And we're always optimizing the sign-up experience. We're always making sure that we have the right content on the non-member homepage, which is the first thing you see when you go to Netflix on your TV or on your devices. We want to make sure that we're communicating with you and we're answering all the possible questions that you could have, so that you don't have any hesitation on signing up. So that can be many different things, from how do we make the TV sign-up experience easier? How do we make sure that we have the right value props on the page? So when you land there, if you're not familiar with Netflix, you can see, oh, these are all the different things that Netflix offers. This is the platform for me. So we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we can maximize off the money we spend in marketing, meaning when you see all these billboards and these signs and you get to the platform, we have to make that experience super easy for you so that we can get you to what you came to the platform to do, which is watch content.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess just to think about probably some of the sources of data as well. You've got your own data from users, I imagine. So, but you're going beyond that with either generating new qualitative exploration, talking to and recruiting new people in, or even quantitative surveys as well on the back of that. So I think, Suzette, it's just about, you know, designing your data set to make sure you do pick up those non-customers, non-consumers, non-users, in this case, pain points.
Tom, this is a small piece I want to add on to that. Was we revamped our TV experience, because even though for the last 12 years, we had the same static image when you logged on to Netflix from your TV, we realized as the growth team, there was a hypothesis that if we updated the static to a video, we would be able to answer more questions that people were having. Even though Netflix was very successful, we still learned from some users, they would get to the platform and have questions that the static page didn't answer. So what we did was we updated that to this amazing dynamic video, which now answers all the questions, as well as it builds on top of all of the positives that we know. And it was a great update because they ended up increasing subscribers by almost 2%, which is a big deal when you have this many people coming to the platform. So just making sure that we're always listening and having empathy for our customers. So making big bets like that took almost 2 years to do. But when you think about the success rate of it, it was worth it.
Indeed. And that carries on paying back, I imagine, as well. Mm-hmm. You've got 220 million users or so over 190 different countries. And so Julia has been asking, you know, and of course, spread of age ranges, right? You've probably got Gen Z to 8 to 80. Mm-hmm. How do cultural differences or age dynamics sort of play into the success and failure of your ideas?
So Netflix, we look at Netflix, as the saying goes, is from 8 to 80. So we have a very diverse team that come from a lot of different areas of the world. And because of that, everybody can put their input into a design, into an idea, into a solution. So because of that, we have people who, if you come up with an idea, and we always what we call farm for dissent, which is nobody just says yes. There's not a bunch of yes men at Netflix. It's a bunch of smart people who will push your idea to the limit, to stress test it, to make sure that you don't, not disrespect, but you don't forget about all the different cultures that are on this planet that we want to make a platform that's inclusive for. So we're always making sure there's cool things that we have where we can show specific content in a specific area that we think would resonate the best with the user. We practice inclusion heavily, so we show whatever language you've selected for the platform in the UI and on the screen, and we have the subtitles for that, as well as when we're doing designs, we're making sure that we're keeping everybody in mind with this. And that's why we don't like to go too specific in one direction. We prefer to come up with something that's more universal that can work for everybody. So we're very sensitive to that because we want everybody to feel Netflix is the platform for them. And that's why we're always either from the beginning designing with everybody in mind, but then we're also doing such diverse testing to see what does Asia versus Australia versus the United States think about something. And we're always taking all that feedback in to make sure that when we finally roll something out, we feel we've heard from enough people in enough diverse places to feel comfortable about what we launch.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely see that. And that is a big investment. I mean, you talked
Huge.
about, previously, but it is a massive investment. And so kudos to you guys for not just doing it, but clearly listening to it as well.
Yeah.
And it brings maybe that point of inclusion. I mean, we've got a couple of questions here that sort of speak to that. One is about cultural bias during qualitative testing. So I think Ignacio, are some social communities prioritized due to market opportunity? Data is powerful, but today can be easily biased due to not including all the representative amount of diversity. So I guess that's a question about who you include and how you think about that, first of all.
I mean, we want to include as many people as possible, but we can't force anybody to participate in any of these research calls. So we reach out and cast the net as wide as possible. And when people respond, we definitely want as much diversity as possible, where we don't say, let's get men from 18 to 19, 18 to 25. Yeah. We just cast the net and say, we want whatever participants in Argentina that would like to participate. And that's how we avoid getting biased, because it's all about, well, who wants to participate? And then once we get those participants in, we evaluate to make sure that we can get the information that we want from them. I haven't seen any situations where the participants didn't feel diverse enough. So that's why the research ends up being very helpful to us. Now, there's always going to be some kind of cultural bias, but we can't control that. What we do know is we work with great partners to select the participants, and then our questions are very focused on what Netflix needs, but we're also listening for, could there be any kind of biases or anything like that? And we take all that into consideration when we finally make the decision, but we try to stay as neutral as possible and as diverse as possible when we select people for these different research, because that benefits us more. It doesn't benefit us as a company to be biased on who we select for the research. It benefits us to have as neutral and as wide of a spectrum of people participating, so that we can really hear from somebody who may be super tech savvy, somebody who might not be tech savvy, somebody who comes from an affluent background, somebody who doesn't come from an affluent background. So we work hard to have diversity in these, because that's what we want to hear from as many people as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And you, as you say, you only get to 1 billion subscribers if you are truly inclusive, and you find ways to reach out to everyone. No, thank you for addressing that. And I maybe just we can spotlight on Chris just for a second here as the design comes to life. Here we go. Thank you, Chris. Look at that.
Awesome. I love that.
Work in progress still, but and then Battle asks about sort of, actually there's clearly been a shift, and Netflix seems to have really stolen a march on some of its competitors by going global and being very clever with it, right? And the way that you film the content, sometimes the same content with different actors using the same sets and things like that. But is there a way that data contributes to the decisions of where you go with content? I mean, this is more a content question, so you may not have the insight here. Right. But I mean, do you, from a conversion point of view, get directed to, right, we're now going to have a big push to convert people in South Asia or, going after Africa? Is that geographical piece part?
Well, we're always looking, we have the best data I've ever seen. I mean, and we're always looking at that data to see what markets could we possibly increase our users in, as well as we're looking at data to see where have we been very popular. So we would use that data, of course, if you have a certain region that you see has picked up subscribers significantly over X amount of time, and they're watching the platform a lot longer, there's something there. What it is, we need to dive in deeper and see, but something's working in that region and something's working about the content that they're consuming. So you would use that just as an easy point, as a starting point of, well, let's see if we should create some more content that resonates with this region, because they've been using the platform a lot lately. And I think that then trickles up to the content producers, and we make those decisions of, can we make more content in this area because these numbers are doing well? I also think there's another perspective of, we want to get into this market, so let's go ahead and start producing content that this market would resonate with, as opposed to just trying to force content from other places there.
It goes hand in hand. What I love about this is that you've got a very clear, focus on your role, but that it goes hand in hand with content. Clearly, you're and marketing, as you say, you're kind of trying to get them over that first or second stage of the funnel. Never quite remember what, but the content will make them stick and kind of perhaps attract them in. But if it's a difficult process to sign up, then we know that friction is like, life's too short, right? And we spoke before a little bit about one of the sign up features I love, which is the QR code. Is that something you can tell us a bit about?
Yeah, so we've already rolled out something which allows you to sign into the platform easier. Signing in on a television can be kind of cumbersome, thinking if you have Alfonso Morris at alfonsomaris.com, that's like 25 letters. So trying to go across, and then if you have a typo, you got to delete everything. And then if you get to the password and you can't remember the password, or you type the wrong password and it's long, or your password uses all kind of abstract characters, signing in could take you a long time. So what did we do? We thought of an easier way for you to sign in, which is just with a QR code. So when you get to the traditional sign-in screen, there's a sign in from web feature that just shows a QR code. You can scan the QR code from your phone. And if you're signed in on the web, it automatically signs you in on your TV, where an experience that could have taken, like I said, 5-6 minutes, now can take like 25 seconds. So that's how we're thinking of. And because of COVID, we now know that a QR code is way more ubiquitous, where prior to COVID, a lot of people in the United States didn't really feel comfortable using a QR code because they didn't really understand the technology. But now when you think of during coronavirus, people not wanting to touch things, and when you go to restaurants, there's way more QR code usage, and you see Coinbase with the Super Bowl, and everywhere there's a lot more QR usage. It made sense for us to try to introduce that, and it's done well for us, where it now allows people to get into the platform a lot faster. And we're playing with something just like that for sign up, to allow you to get into the platform faster.
And what I love about that is sometimes in innovation, we get really excited about the next new thing, right? And we haven't even let the current new thing or the current thing settle. And QR codes have been around for what, a decade plus, but they didn't have great usage, maybe rate. And so it's only in the last, as you say, during COVID, last 2 years, as they become more ubiquitous. And I think that's super smart, to not be so far ahead of your users. And this is where user empathy comes back to that, right? Really understanding what they want, what they would find useful, what their pain points are. QR code is such a smart solution to that, that I doff my cap to you guys.
I was working on that.
Well, very nice. And the other thing I think we talked about is not everyone is comfortable with the QR code, right?
No. So Tom, one piece I want to add so that people understand what product design is a little deeper is, it wasn't about QR code replacing logging in from your remote. It was about adding on to that experience, where we allow you to decide, do you want to use QR code? If you're not comfortable with it, you can stick to logging in with the remote and never worry about QR codes. But what if you're not happy with logging in from the remote and you wish we did have a QR code experience? We did. So it's not about one or the other. It's about whatever works for you.
So we've got a lovely question here from Catherine Fuller that I want to go to, which is, look, you're at a moment of 200 million users, maybe 1 billion. Catherine's actually pushed you to 2 billion. So, hey, your target's just gone up by double. But nonetheless, how do you balance the focus, I think is the point. Is it, which are the problems that you try and solve? Is it, as she puts it, the loudest, the biggest majority, the strategically most important? Or is it about solving all of them? How do you figure kind of 1 billion different problems maybe? Or
well, it's a big company, so multiple teams would split that up. My team, we definitely don't focus on the loudest or the biggest majority. It's more of, we as a company, we create strategy bets at the beginning of the year. And now we decide on, well, how are you going to make these strategy bets successful? Some of them are focused around revenue. Some of them are focused around retention. Some of them are focused around optimization, subscriber increase. So it depends on which team you're on, which problem you'll be solving, but we always want to grow the platform. So subscribers is the most important, but it's not specifically one region. It's just, we want to grow our subscribers globally. And we're always thinking about, if we see slow subscriber growth in an area, we want to dig deeper in. Once again, this is where research comes into play and data science comes into play, of trying to figure out, well, what's going on here? Is it some form of, is it the content thing? Is it access to internet? Is it GDP? What is it? Like, what is the reason that could potentially be slowing growth down in this area? And then we double down on that. So, and it depends on which team you're on, what you'll come up with to solve that. My team is focused on, we have a lot of smart TV users. So that's a huge market. That's not specifically any geographic region. It's, you get a new smart TV, we want to make sure you can get to Netflix as fast as possible. You have a cell phone with internet access, we want to make sure you can get to Netflix as easy as possible. I know that sounds vague, but that's how vague we want to be, because that's how broad our users are. It's just, somebody who has a smart TV could be super savvy at it and get through the platform easy. Somebody could have a smart TV and need some support from somebody who might not be there. So that's why the goal is to not try to focus too much on one specific group, but make sure that we're solving that bigger problem, and how we solve that problem varies.
Lovely. And look, maybe we'll just take the last question. I'm gonna blend Julia and Ignacio's question. Nice. I guess it's really about, how do you go into this research process? It seems to have really captured people's attention, by the way, and I think it's, as I say, I think it's great. Exactly, you and I both. So is it about sort of going in with a set of hypotheses? Do you have a kind of like, this is what we think, and are you kind of effectively exploring and testing?
Yes.
Or do you ever go in very open and like, just tell us what your problems are, help us understand, what the issues are?
The former, because
the hypotheses.
Because research takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy. It's not easy to set up these intercontinental research sections. So even though I would like to go into a research broad and just say, tell me what you think about Netflix, I think you could possibly get that more from a survey. If you were just asking, so what do you think of the platform 1 to 10? What would you change? What do you love? What do you not like? When we do qualitative research, we already have a hypothesis that we're trying to get validated or not. We think it may work, but it doesn't really get moved into, let's start working on this, until we hear from our people. So the qualitative researchers are way more specific, because we know what we're trying to hear from the customer, and we hope to hear what we want. But if we don't, like I said, we'll make that change. And that's why the quals are so important for us, to make sure that we're always hearing from our customers.
And I would just absolutely echo that approach. I think going in, it's the scientific method, really. You go in with something to test, to explore, and then you get behavior. I know you're showing people things. You're getting behavior more than just sort of projections to the future. I think as Fonz has suggested, with the the idea of the kind of data from surveys, maybe that gives you more of that, oh, there's a nugget here. But equally, I think with the kind of data that you have on your users, maybe you start to spot things anyway. But when it comes to qual, it's expensive, but in its depth. And I think, to answer Julia's point, unless you go in with a hypothesis, you can't easily convert all that into really actionable insight. So
right. Plus, the last thing I'll say is we want to hear specifically about something in the quals. If we just went into a qual and was like just free for all, you might go the whole 2 hours and just hear a bunch of banter, and you might not leave with something that you can really use. So that's why when we do these quals, not that we're super rigid, but we do have a frame, a context that we're trying to get some insight on, and we try to stick to that. But there is still room to go out, because we want the experience to be comfortable and open, not super rigid, where it's like, answer these 5 questions and that's it. We'll throw something out there and see what people think about it, even though we have that tied into a more specific goal for the research overall.
Amazing. Well, I think very sadly, Fonz, our time is over all too quickly. But you've done such a lovely job. You've answered all the questions that have been thrown at you from the audience, who are clearly super engaged.
I needed an hour. Max,
I know. Always leave them wanting more. Always leave them wanting more. But you've got Stranger Things fans, I'm sure you've got.
I got to jump into a meeting, actually.
Right? There you go.
Welcome to the life.
Thank you so much. And Chris, maybe we just can spotlight the wonderful work.
Yes, let's show that again. Chris is a genius. Look at that. That's beautiful.
There you go. From one designer to another. But thank you very much. We will let you run if you need to. And all that remains for me at the end of day one is to say thank you to all our speakers today, from Fonz right back to Monica at the beginning. We've got another action-packed day for you tomorrow. We've got ABI, we've got BMW, we've got Miro, we've got Henkel, and the fabulous Greg Hoffman, who's the ex-Nike CMO, author of Emotion by Design. Sorry. The day starts at 9:30 with yoga. If you want to be there for a 20-minute yoga with Box Mind, get there, get ready. Exactly. Thank you. Beautifully demonstrated. And then we'll be opening up at sort of 9:50. I'll do a little bit of a run-in for the 10 a.m. talk with Mary Fakura, all about innovating beyond the core. Going to be fascinating.
If you have any questions, everybody, reach out to me. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, Fonz Morris. I would love to continue the conversation. Hit me up.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Fonz. Thank you,
man. Have a good week.
See you tomorrow.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.